Hey folks, got an interesting story here. RV travel website. RV park owner throws in the towel. The business has changed, even shockingly. This article, I will put a link to it in the description below. Talks about a lot of changes coming to your local campground. One of the big ones is the fact that a lot of these campgrounds are getting bought out by hedge funds and big profit-making corporations. A lot of the parks in the past have been owned by families or couples or just individuals that were locally based, and now things are changing. Walnut Hills Campground, Stanton, Virginia, has passed the baton to new owners, only the fifth time in the campground's 52-year history. But basically, it is just, the whole business of campgrounds is being kind of corporatized. According to this article, the campground business is becoming more corporate, more Disney-fied, less attuned to the very things that once separated camping from other forms of transient lodging, kind of glamping. A suburbanized version. The cottages, for example, they're becoming nicer and nicer and more like hotel rooms. If not a suburbanized version of Motel 6, So the fake logs in the fireplace, sometimes air conditioning, So, you're actually like not renting a rural rustic camp, rustic shack. That's what I'm trying to get. You're not getting a rusty shack, rustic cabin. You're getting a motel room that looks like a cabin. Anyway, a Shenandoah Acres, which is 522 sites, was sold to a holding company last year for $3 million. And then the holding company flipped it and sold it 1 year later for $17 million. The buyer is something called Sun RV Resorts, which already owns several hundred properties in the United States and Canada. Originally, the property was owned by Bill and Ruth Small, who built the campground from scratch starting 45 years ago. And anyway, So, it's changed ownership only a few times, but now it's owned by a big kind of campground corporate company. So a lot of things are changing. They're upgrading the facilities, and they're making it more like staying in a motel than staying in a campground, staying in a cabins, all that other stuff. The other thing they're doing is called demand pricing. This is what airlines do, where they look at all the data coming in on, who's making reservations and where they're from and how much they can pay and all this other stuff. And they change the pricing actually day to day. So if the campground is like more empty on Tuesdays, they'll actually lower the rates on Tuesdays, but then they go up on Wednesdays. So most of the older campgrounds had seasonal rates, certain times of the year you paid a daily rate. Now it's like an airline. You want to book a ticket on a Monday, you'll pay this rate. A Tuesday, you'll pay that rate. Demand pricing, it's dynamic. So anyway, they're getting to that, yes. There are no more rate sheets, it's like an airline, It's like an airline run by a giant corporation. Employees are also affected at these campgrounds now. Used to be they got paid like the next day. If their shift went from the 1st to the 14th, they would get paid on the 15th because, some local lady was just writing out the checks. Now because everything's being processed at a giant data center somewhere that's being used by the corporate owner of the park, people sometimes it's a 2 and 3 week wait to get painted, and that can be a bitch for people that are minimally making above minimum wage. This article was penned by Andy Zipster, who is a former owner of this campground near Stanton. He says, more changes for campers and employees are sure to follow. Some may be for the better. However, if some of these corporate dollars are reinvested in the property or in higher wages, I suspect, that's a possibility. That's on the upside. However, the overall trend will continue in the direction that has already been set, that camping will be ever more crowded, more expensive, and more insulated from the outdoors as it ostensibly exists to embrace. It's more like hotels, motels, They're just out at, in the woods, right? Anyway, Andy says, we feel lucky to have gotten a taste of the good old days and feel bad that we have contributed and feel bad that we've contributed our small share to this slippery slope, but feel fortunate to have had the opportunity to move on to new ventures. So, hey, they're paying money. Campground sells for $3 million, and a year later, $17 million. Hedge funds, it's inevitable. It's inevitable. And more people are getting into camping, RVing. You see some of these parks. You watch a lot of these channels. You watch like Full Tiny House. These campgrounds are at Thousand Trails. These campgrounds are very, built out. They have swimming pools. They have full washing machine facilities. They have almost luxurious cabins. There's a lot of facilities there. They've got electricity. They've got Wi-Fi. They've got plumbing and so a lot of people they want this kind of luxury when they go camping, and they're going to pay for it. So anyway, very good article. Put a link to it in the comments below. RV park owner throws in the towel. The business has changed, even shockingly. Yeah, big corporations are getting in everything, including your local RV park. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below.